For 50 yards of fun, I did something a little different, and I decided when I was doing 2 legs on a body like this, I would knit them at the same time. I start at the bottom, I work the 2 separate legs up on one needle, like 2 at a time socks, but much smaller and easier. And then when I get to the hip line, I drop 1 yarn and work the body as one piece. If this is too intimidating, you can knit 2 legs separately and join them at the hips instead, but I think if you watch this video, it should seem fairly straightforward. The main thing is you need yarn that has the ability to feed from 2 different spots, like a center pole ball that can pull from the inside and the outside, or 2 smaller balls of yarn. I'm going to pull from the center to get started, and then use the outside for the second leg. First, I'll cast on 3 stitches from the center. These are the first 3 stitches of leg 1. Then, I'm going to move to the outside yarn and cast on 6 stitches. These will be all 6 stitches of leg 2. So when I'm done here, I'll have the first 3 stitches of leg 1 coming from the center yarn, and the second 6 stitches will be from the outside yarn, and they will be all of the second leg stitches. At this point, I want to slide all of my stitches to the center of my cable, and then I'm going to find the halfway mark of the second set of stitches and divide my cable up through there. I'll then move all of the stitches back onto the needles, and you can see at this point I have the 3 stitches from the center on one needle plus 3 stitches from the outside on both needles. At this point, leg 2 is cast on, but I still need to cast on the last 3 stitches of leg 1. Working with my center yarn, I want to cast on 3 more stitches onto the back needle, which is now my front needle. Casting on, you'll just act as if you're casting onto the same needle and just stretch your yarn across the 2 needles and add those 3 stitches. You're looking at it backwards at this point, so you'll need to turn the needles around and make sure your working yarn is coming from the back needle. And at this point, we're ready to get started on the legs. So I'm set up and ready to knit my 2 legs at the same time. My first set of legs is coming from the center, and my second set of legs is coming from the outside of the ball. At this point, I'm going to join across from the back needle to the front needle and begin to knit in the round. I'm going to go ahead and knit in front and back of each stitch because that is what the pattern will call for on 2 legs at the same time. Once I get through the first 3 stitches, now 6 stitches, of leg 1, I want to drop the yarn coming from the center and pick up the yarn coming from the outside that's connected to the second set of stitches. This is going to be the trickiest part of this whole thing, remembering to drop the yarn that's attached to leg 1 and pick up the yarn that's attached to leg 2, and the opposite once you're done with leg 2. Always be sure you're using the right yarn from the set of legs you are on, but worst case, it is only 6 stitches if you mess up and have to back up your stitches. It's much easier than learning to do 2 at a time on socks, right? At the end of the second leg, once we're across all the stitches on the front needle, we're going to turn to the back needle and continue with the same outside yarn as we go to the back, since we're continuing the last stitches of leg 2. We'll rotate to where the unworked stitches are and pull out our back needle and work magic loop method across these stitches as well, knitting in front and back of each stitch. Once we come to the end of these stitches, we're going to drop that outside yarn and pick up the yarn coming from the center of the ball that's connected to the legs, the stitches from leg 1. At this point, we'll continue the round and finish it up by knitting in front and back of each of the last of the leg 1 stitches. So that's what 2 at a time legs for the first round looks like. You can see we've got the 2 legs started there, and we're knitting them at the same time, but they're separate. At this point, I have knit up to the hips, and I am now going to show you how to join them from 2 separate small rounds into 1 big round. To do this, we're going to add some stitches between the legs, which will make the round larger. And this is also where we'll stuff the creature when we're done. So we're going to get started and just knit the stitches from leg 1. Knit all of these stitches with the outside yarn, and when we're at the end, we're going to continue with the outside yarn and add the stitches between the legs here with knit on, cast on. To do this and get the stitches in the right spot, we'll need to turn the leg to the back side so that the stitches go up onto the needle. If we were to try and do knit on, cast on the front side, they'll go the wrong direction, so make sure you're working from the back side. Then for knit on, cast on, we just knit through the last stitch on the needle, pull it out, quarter turn, and place it up on the needle. And we'll repeat that until we've added 6 stitches between the legs. Once we've added our 6 stitches, we're going to turn back to the right side of our work. And then we're going to continue with that inside yarn and knit all of the stitches from leg 2. Once we're finished with the stitches on the front needle, we'll turn to the back and continue to work leg 2 stitches. And once we're through leg 2 stitches, we're going to add more stitches between the legs, just like we did with the first set, by turning the work around, doing the knit on, cast on, and adding 6 more stitches. Once we've added our additional stitches between the 2 legs, we'll finish up this first round of the body by knitting the last stitches of leg 1. At this point, we're done with the yarn that's coming from the outside of the ball, so we can cut it, leaving enough tail to weave in later when we are done. That's it. It's easy, and now you have mini pants.